subprime crisis 2008, the factors and impacts of the crisis. A financial crisis is defined as any situation where one or more significant financial assets, such as stocks, real estate, or oil, suddenly loses a substantial amount of their nominal value, leading to panic, market disruption, and often severe economic downturns. For example, 1997 Asian financial crisis, 2008 global financial crisis, and 2020 COVID-19 pandemic. This graph shows how global GDP changed during the Great Recession from 2007 to 2011. In 2007, the economy was growing well at 4.48%. In 2008, growth slowed to 2.07% as financial problems began. In 2009, the economy shrank by 1.33%, which is the worst year of the crisis. In 2010, growth bounced back to 4.53% thanks to global recovery efforts. By 2011, growth was at 3.33%, showing some stability though not fully recovered. Let's take a quick look at how the 2008 financial crisis happened. It all began after a small recession in 2001. The US lowered interest rates. This made it easier to borrow money, and banks started giving home loans even to people with bad credit. Everyone thought home prices will keep going up. In 2004 to 2006, house prices keep rising. Banks turned risky loans into investment and sold them. A lot of people bought homes they actually couldn't afford. Then, in 2007, interest rates went up. Loans became harder to pay back. Many people couldn't afford their homes anymore and house prices started falling. In 2008, everything falls apart. Big bank lost money, Lehman Brothers went bankrupt, and panic spread. Stock markets crashed, people lost jobs, and world trade slowed down. So, the crisis started small, but because of risky loans and falling house prices, it turns into a global financial disaster.
Hi and Assalamualaikum everyone. So in my part, we are going to break down the key factors that cause financial crisis. So the first one is subprime lending booms. Banks and financial institutions in the US were aggressively issued subprime mortgages, which is home loans that were offered to the borrowers with a poor credit history. So if you think why do they do this, it is because they could bundle and sell these risky loans as mortgage-backed securities. Based on the article that I show here, as early as February 2007, there are several large subprime lenders has begun reporting their losses. Even by July, the credit spreads has started widening, which shows a sign of growing risk. Next is securitization of mortgages. These risky loans were packaged into complex financial products, which is mortgage-backed securities, MBS, and collateralized debt obligations, CDOS, and it was sold to the investors worldwide. And this process is called as securitizations, which it was supposed to spread risk, but instead they hide it. Moving on to the next part, global contagion. Now, you might ask, if this started in the US, so why did it hit Europe, Asia, and everywhere else? That brings us to the global contagion. Due to the international financial linkage, subprime related investments were held not just by American banks, but it was also held by the European funds. So as we can see from the chart, from 1997 to 2008, the United States ran a growing current account deficit. This imbalance means that surplus countries as China has poured their excess savings into the US financial market. The other factors is housing bubble burst. The housing market was overheated. Prices has doubled in some areas from 2000 to 2006. Why this happened? Why do this occur? It is because easy credit, speculative buying, and the belief that prices will rise forever. They were expecting the price would keep rising. And the last one is high leverage and risk taking. While risky lending was bad enough, what really amplified the crisis was the extreme leverage in the system. Financial institutions borrow heavily to invest in subprime related assets when they are betting that housing prices will keep rising. For example, There is a consensus that the subprime crisis has triggered a credit contractions, especially in the shadow banking system. We take the example from the Lehman Brothers bankruptcy in September 2008 that is related to these key factors, as I provided the article here. That's all from me. Thank you.
Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk about the impact of subprime crisis 2008 on United States. This was one of the biggest financial disasters in history. It didn't just hit banks and businesses, it also changed the life of millions of people. The crisis started because too many people were given loans they couldn't actually afford. It's important to understand this event because it shows us what happens when financial mistakes are not controlled. For the first impact is housing market crash. The first big problem happened in the housing market. Before the crisis, banks gave out lots of risky home loans called subprime loans to people who had low income or bad credit. From the year 2000 until 2006, these risky loans grew from just 2.4% to almost 40% of all home loans. House prices also rise up fast, about 80% because so many people were buying homes with borrowed money. But when people couldn't pay their loans, things fell apart. By early 2008, over 1 in 5 of these loans were not being paid back. Because of that, price house crash, people lost their homes and housing market completely broke down. This crash didn't just hurt homeowners, it also caused a huge loss of banks, investors, and the construction industry. For the next impact is massive job loss. When the housing market crashed, the damage spread to the whole economy. One of the worst effects was that the millions of people lost their jobs. The US lost about 9 million jobs in just 2 years. The unemployment rate jumped from 4.6% in 2007 to nearly 10% in 2009. Families really struggled to survive. It was just not about losing work, people also lost their health insurance, their homes, and their savings, which made life even harder. Next is the crisis caused a big bank to collapse. As more people stopped paying their loans, banks started losing a huge amount of money. In 2008 alone, 25 banks failed and more kept closing in the following years. One of the biggest shocks was when Lehman Brothers, a huge investment bank, went bankrupt. That caused panic everywhere and almost crashed the world financial system. The last but not least, things got so bad that the government had to step in to save the economy. The Federal Reserve quickly cut interest rate from 5.25% to just 2.25% to make borrowing cheaper and keep businesses running. At the same time, the government gave hundreds of billions of dollars to banks and companies to stop them from going bankrupt. One big program called TARP gave about $700 billion to help the financial system. Oh, did you know what is TARP? TARP stands for Troubled Asset Relief Program. It was the US government program launched in 2008 during the financial crisis to save the banking system from collapsing. These actions were risky, but without them, many experts believe that US economy might have fully collapsed.
Assalamualaikum, and my name is Atira. Next is for the current economic status in US. US economy is experiencing a period of heightened uncertainty marked by slowing growth, rising inflation, and increasing fiscal challenge. For the first point is economic growth and stagflation concerns. The US economy contracted by 0.2% in the first quarter of 2025, following a 2.4% expansion in the previous quarter. This downturn is attributed to a surge in imports ahead of anticipated tariffs and a reduction in government spending. As you guys can see the graph, inflationary pressures are mounting with the Federal Reserve's preferred metric, the Personal Consumption Expenditures (PCE) index, rising to 3.6% in the first quarter, up from 2.4% in the previous quarter. This combination of slowing growth and rising inflation has led to concerns about stagflation. Okay, next point is fiscal policy and national debt. President Trump's recent tariff implementation, including a 10% baseline tariff on most countries and higher rates on specific imports, are projected to reduce the federal deficit by $2.8 trillion over a decade. And the last one is labor market and Federal Reserve actions. The labor market shows signs of weakening with only 37,000 private sector jobs added in May. However, the unemployment rate stands at 4.2% as of April 2025.
I will share a short presentation about Malaysian economic condition during the 2008 subprime crisis and compare it with our current situation. In 2008, Malaysia was affected because our economy depends a lot on export. One of the most impact area was the manufacturing sector, especially electronic and semiconductor. As you can see, in January 2009, Malaysian export dropped by almost 15%. The United States and European Union were the main market that reduced their demand. This situation also affects jobs. The unemployment rate increased from 3.3% in 2007 to 3.7% in 2009. Many people lost their job, especially in states like Penang, Selangor and Johor, which have many export-related industries. To help the economy, Bank Negara Malaysia reduced the overnight policy rate from 3.7% to 2.0%. This was done to increase money flow and support spending by businesses and consumers. Now, let's look at the current situation. In 2024, Malaysian economy grew by 4.2%. This growth comes from strong domestic demand, more tourist activity, and stable job opportunities. Bank Negara Malaysia believes this growth will continue in 2025, even though there are still global challenges. Malaysia is still a popular place for foreign investment, especially in areas like semiconductor, electronic vehicle part, and green energy. Big companies like Tesla and Infineon are expanding their business here, which is show they are trust our economy. The job market has also improved. The unemployment rate is now back to around 3.3%, which is similar to before the pandemic. More jobs are being created in digital economy, service and infrastructure sector. It helps people find work and earn stable income. The 2008 subprime crisis show how quickly the world can face big problem when banks take too many risks. It started in US, but it spread fast and affected many countries. In Malaysia, export dropped and some people lost their job, but the government acted quickly by lowering interest rate and giving support to businesses. This helped the economy to recover fast. After crisis, Malaysia was worked to be more prepared. We are focused on building a stronger economy, creating more jobs and planning better for future challenges.